This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, June 3rd, 2024. Case file number 1644, written by Alive Weird 4230. Can a pair of shoes destroy a universe? About 5 years ago, I moved out of my own home and started renting a room in someone's house. I meticulously went through everything as I packed it, kinda inventoried it by category, and took everything I didn't actively use or need to the dump. So in this new room, everything I owned was pretty minimal and was all only kept in that one room. There was nothing out of place, and everything had a place. Meticulously organized, and I was consistent about throwing out everything I didn't need or actively use. I was pretty obsessive about it. So one day, I just felt really not well. Felt like I had a hangover. I took a nap and ended up waking up like 8 hours later, late at night. Feeling so groggy, I just had to get up and drink some water and fall asleep again. This happened again repeatedly, and I ended up sleeping the majority of a 36+ hour period. The final time I got up to go pee, on my way back from the bathroom, I tripped over a pair of shoes that were sitting beside my slippers at the foot of my bed. I laid back down, but I thought, wait, what shoes even were those? So I look and they're a pair of Nike slides. I'm so confused because I've never seen them in my life. I've never worn slides at all. They're 2 sizes bigger than my feet. I would never buy something in that color scheme. And my shoes had always perfectly fit my one shoe shelf anyway. These were half tucked under the corner of my bed like I used to with my shoes before I moved there. No explanation I could come up with made any sense because I didn't know anyone in that town. My housemates were out of town and not the type to walk into my room anyway. So there was no chance anyone had found them in the house and thought, oh, these must be hers. My sister was the last person to visit, but that was 3 or 4 months prior. I asked her if they were hers, asked my housemates. No explanation. In pictures of my room from 2 days before, there are no shoes. So I just kept the shoes there. Didn't know what to do with them. I always wondered. So fast forward to about 6 months ago. I've moved twice since that house, had given the shoes away. Hadn't thought about them in a while. I decided to organize some old SD cards I had sitting around. I'm sorting my pictures from my old house from 1 or 2 years before I moved into that room. And suddenly I see a picture I took of nothing but my leg resting in front of me. And I'm wearing the slides. They're visibly the same color and 2 sizes too big that I was so sure I had never seen in my life. I couldn't find a single other picture featuring the slides. And I combed through thousands of pictures to see if I could. I still don't get it. Why don't remember them? Where did they come from in the picture from 7 years ago? Why don't they appear in any other pictures? Why did I even take a picture of my leg? How they had just been in my meticulous little new room without me knowing, any of it. What the hell? Case file number 1645, written by Soggy Broccoli, 7881. The mysterious connection between thought and tragedy. It is a tragic and strange story that happened 7 years ago. This is the first time I'm sharing it with someone. I haven't even shared it with my mother. Year 2017, summer. I returned to my home country after 1 year from a university abroad. My father picked me up from the airport, and we had dinner at home. Everything was as usual as it could be. I went to bed around 12 p.m. and slept immediately. I woke up around 5 a.m. to pee, and went directly to the bathroom, which is in my room, so I didn't step out of my room. We all think different things when peeing, such as the color of the walls or what to eat for breakfast. For this time, out of nowhere, I started thinking that if I were to choose one, I would choose my mother or my father. Then I thought my sister would be devastated without my mother, and my father cannot handle my sister in her teenage years. I decided that the absence of my father would be easier than losing my mother. I finished peeing and just about to get back to my bed. I heard a strong snoring noise. My father was always snoring since childhood, and sometimes we were having fun with it. However, this time it felt stronger and not natural. The noise led me to the living room, where I found my father lying on the couch with a little blood on his nose. I tried to wake him up, but he was unconscious. I called 911. Woke my mother up, but once we arrived at the hospital, he passed away. He was 48. Doctors said it was because of a cerebral hemorrhage caused by high blood pressure. We don't know what time it happened. I'm still confused with the situation. I wasn't there for 1 year and had the chance of having one last dinner and conversation with my father. I found him like that and acted with cold blood. I can't imagine the trauma they would live through if my mother or sister would find him lying on the couch, And of course, I still wonder why I thought such a thing in the bathroom, and what would have happened if I had chosen my mother. Thank you for listening. Case file number 1646, written by Coma NPC. From Seargent to Glitch Detective. I used to be in the army. One day, about 6 years ago, 4 of my soldiers and I was a sergeant at the time, were working on our vehicle maintenance on a motor pool Monday. I had been with this organization for almost 2 years, and the process for turning in our maintenance paperwork had always been the same. The process was, inspect the vehicles, annotate any faults in the paperwork, 5988, bring it to the mechanics to verify any faults. Once verified, bring it to the company XO. After I passed out the maintenance paperwork for that week to my soldiers, they went out and tried to complete the task. However, they came back to me a little while later to let me know that the mechanics were refusing to verify the paperwork and said that we were supposed to bring it to the XO first, and then it would go to them. This irritated me, because I knew the process and that was wrong. I figured it was just a new mechanic giving out bad information. So I went and talked to the maintenance chief warrant officer. When I told him the process we were trying to do, his exact words were, "We have never done it like that, Sergeant." At this point, I feel like I'm being pranked, so I call my platoon sergeant. He tells me that I'm wrong, and it has never been done the way I remember. Well, it wasn't just me that remembered it that way. All 4 of my soldiers were just as confused as myself. We asked our buddies from other platoons, other mechanics, and other sergeants, and everyone told us we were wrong. Wanting to just be done with it for the day, we all complied with the process. A week goes by, and Motor Pool Monday comes back around. My soldiers and I do the process we did the week prior. I go to bring the paperwork to the XO before the mechanics, and he looks at me and says, "What are you doing, Sergeant? These have to be verified by the mechanics first before you bring them to me." I laughed and asked if he was joking, but he was not. So I went back to Motor Pool and asked the maintenance chief, who affirmed the process that I knew was right from the beginning. I went back to my office and told my soldiers, who were all just as confused as I was. Everyone had gone back to the original way, and no one had any memory of the other process, other than my 4 soldiers and myself. We could not think of any good explanation for what happened, other than a really weird shared glitch. The process never changed again. It remained the same for the next 1.5 years I was with that organization. To this day, I randomly think about this, and it drives me crazy not knowing what happened there. Case file number 1647, written by Tin Pot Radio Show, The Park of Geometric Glitches. I have an 18-month-old baby girl, and part of our routine is every Monday, we walk from our flat to a park and back, via a different route through another park, because she likes to look at the cherry blossoms. We've done this every single Monday for around 13 months now. I never changed the route, and it's roughly the same time every week. We took off, got to the first park, and all was okay. But for some strange reason, I felt like I was in a panic. My heart rate was high. I felt a bit anxious. I didn't really want to stay, but my daughter was having a good time. Eventually, I worked out that there was no one else in the park, just us. And it's usually quite full, so I thought that must be it. We started our walk home, where we changed the route to walk through the second park, which has the cherry blossoms. I know this route like the back of my hand. Crossed at a set of lights and then the first right and up the hill to the park. Not a complicated route. I was walking with my head down and suddenly realized I had no idea where I am. I've never seen this road before. I've lived in the city for 16 years. It felt completely off. No cars, no leaves. Every road here is covered in them and conquers. No wind. It was deadly silent. I went to stop and walk back the way I came, presuming somehow I've managed to screw up the route. Suddenly, a car drives past with a woman in a brown jacket and hat, and a pair of black sunglasses. I think, well, I'll just keep going, end up at the park somehow. Then another red car, same woman with the same jacket, hat, and glasses, but car slightly different. I think that's a bit bizarre. Then it happens again. A red car, woman in a brown jacket with a hat and glasses. I pick up the pace and go down a different street, but something felt really bad about going that way. So I kept going straight, and about 20 minutes of walking, I got to the end, and I'm on the road that takes me to the park I was aiming at. But suddenly all noises, leaves, and cars are back. I get to the park and check my phone, and it's 2 p.m. I left the first park at 10:45 a.m. It takes 25 minutes to get from that park to the second one. I couldn't have been walking more than 20 minutes down that street. The following day, I woke up early for work, and I couldn't stop thinking about that road. So I left earlier in my car, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I tried 2 different ways, where I entered and where I exited. And the other routes I ended up on were not that road I walked down. I just can't work it out. I couldn't sleep for 2 days thinking about it. And now I can't stop seeing the face of the woman in the brown jacket, but I don't remember ever actually acknowledging what she looked like at the time. Case file number 1648, written by Reel Back in Style. What would you do if a stranger's prophecies came true? This happened years ago. I met this really off, weird guy in a pub in Manchester, whose vibes, when I think about it, give me chills to my core. In 2018, I went to watch Chase and Status at the Academy. Beforehand, I went for a meal and some drinks with my ex. Whilst we are having a drink, there's this really strange guy at the bar area near us. And what weirded me out about this guy is I had a close friend pass away from a substance overdose a few months prior at the age of 19. But this random fella's vibe just gave me a really similar feeling to my friend, even though the man was a lot older. As we're in the pub and drinks are flowing, I get speaking to this fella, and he seems nice enough. And he mentions I'm a clairvoyant. Do you want me to tell you your future? I hate stuff like this. It wears me out. I don't want any bad news or worrying about something before it happens. My partner at the time wanted to hear what he had to say though, so he told me my future. At the time it annoyed me because she's the one who asked, why am I getting the rundown? So he's told me all of this that's happened by the way that I'm going to mess up and lose my girlfriend, which we didn't want to hear before I'm trying to go to a rave with her. Then he said I'm going to get in a fight and lose my front teeth, and I'm going to get stabbed, and all these things will happen within 3 months. My partner at the time shrugged it off and just told me not to listen to him. He's a loon. Now, after dropping these bombshells on me, he casually eats 3 Xanax in front of me, gave me this weird as hell familiar smile, downs his drink, and just walks off. The friend who passed away from Xanax was involved, and I can't explain it. I know I sound crazy, but I just weirded out by the interaction. Lo and behold, the most specific events he told me were going to happen, did happen, and happened within 3 months of each other exactly how he said. I've literally just asked my ex if she remembered the encounter, because it was one of the most strange in my life, and she did remember. Case file number 1649, written by 25 Blue 2019. The Mystery of Retirement. I work at a 55-plus apartment complex with almost 800 apartments. I'm the maintenance manager, so it is not uncommon for me. Anyways, I'll start at the beginning. I started my day at 6:30 a.m., walking from my truck to the golf cart coral. Monday, as I was doing this, coffee in hand, I saw a few of the early birds doing my thing, saying good morning with a nod and wave. I saw a man in a red t-shirt and blue jeans who looked young for the place, walking maybe 47-ish, looking aloof or kinda lost. Not uncommon in either instance, some age better than others. So I waved and nodded. He looked at me like I had done something odd, kinda like shocked and what the hell at the same time. I waved again and said good morning as I passed him. I turned back and he was standing, looking over his shoulder at me. I didn't think anything of it at the time. It was odd, but that's actually common for that demographic to give me the stink eye. I went on my way and saw the man again this morning just slightly outside of the fire gates of the fire lane, the same as the day before, looking lost and giving me a bewildered look. At 2:50 p.m., a family member called our office to do a welfare check on her brother. So my boss and I went. The first thing we noticed was the ticket left on the door from the Meals on Wheels for undelivered meals going back to Sunday. When we opened the door, the smell hit us. We went in and the man I had seen the past 2 days was lying in his bed, well expired. The coroner said he had been deceased either late Sunday night or early Monday morning. I knew this man was as real as anyone else standing there in the fire lane, Monday and Tuesday morning, looking at me like I was a whack job. I feel like I'm a nut. Anyone else had this happen? Case file number 1650, written by Pappy Demonic. My uncle was erased. Last Tuesday, and I had just gotten off the closing shift at my job. Me and my brother, who share a room with our uncle, were kinda just chilling the rest of the night, and our uncle had been out for the whole day basically, so we didn't know when he was coming home. Finally, I saw him walk inside from the back patio as he closed the sliding door and locked it. I only knew it was him because of the tattoos on him and the white tank top he would always wear. The rest of the night wasn't anything out of the ordinary. My uncle would walk around the room and the house. I even remember seeing him walk into the kitchen to grab something to eat. Finally, I was getting ready to go to sleep at around 2:30, and I remember looking around the room and seeing my uncle lay in his bed. I also remember looking at my brother on his iPad with max brightness and thinking to myself, he should turn down the brightness or he'll bother uncle. It wasn't until the next morning when I got woken up with a knock at the door. It was the detectives and my uncle's parole officer. They spoke with my grandma and told her my uncle was in the hospital. I didn't think too much of it because he had gone to the hospital a week prior for stomach issues. An hour later, I got a call from my sister crying, saying my uncle had been hit by a car and was brain dead. For the rest of the day, I thought this had to have happened sometime after 3 in the morning. Later that night, we found out that it happened around 9:30 while I was at work and before I'd even gotten home. I don't really know what to think of it. Every time I replay that night in my head, it's the same thing over and over again, and I know what I saw, and it's just so weird. Case file number 1651, written by Linda Maiden. On the backroads of Indiana, our minds were shattered. This happened to me in December 1969. I am a retired registered nurse. I have experienced or witnessed many things that are beyond understanding. But I'm also a critical thinker, and my story changed my thoughts on our limited view of reality forever. I was with my high school boyfriend on a typical Friday date night in Jeffersonville, Indiana. After socializing with friends at the local hangouts, we would ride out on the rural back roads that were located between downtown and my home in a subdivision. There were dairy farms and cornfields on either side of the road for about 6 miles. The few homes along this stretch sat on the back of properties, and there were a couple of equipment paths that led to small open fields that were our teenagers' parking spots. Past that, the 2-lane narrow road was heavily wooded, with no homes or cleared property for 10 miles. This particular road had many curves and hills, which is typical for southern Indiana. Sparse population and teenage driving led to many accidents. There were no cell phones in those days, and you'd need luck if one saw an accident and were to stop, help and pray for another motorist to appear to flag down, to send to the nearest house, to call for police and an ambulance or transport the victims to the hospital yourself. It was a very cold December night and snow flurries began. We left our parking area immediately as my curfew wasn't to be missed. The remainder of our drive to my home was through the wooded area, and on straightaways we saw taillights quite a bit ahead. As we were approaching the second sharp curve, we saw headlights shining from ground level, and at an angle towards us. We immediately slowed and pulled as far off the road as possible. The grille was damaged and the passenger side had struck trees. The headlights in the otherwise pitch black night were blinding. A fully restored, beautiful 1956 Chevy had apparently tried to take the curve too fast, had lost control. The car was off the road on its roof. My boyfriend, Greg, grabbed his flashlight, got another for me along with the first aid kit from the trunk, and we ran to assist anyone that might be injured. The headlights had kept us from seeing how many passengers the car held. I clearly remember my heart pounding from the adrenaline, and my mind fearing injuries, as nobody was shouting back to our calling out, and nobody was attempting to get out of the car. I could smell the strong odor of gasoline and burned rubber. The engine was running and making a knocking sound. Greg got down on his knees and opened the driver's side door, and I opened the back. The car was empty. He reached up and turned the ignition. The engine was now off, and the woods were silent. Nothing was making sense. Our headlights and flashlights were giving us light, and we started searching for a possible injured person. The windows were rolled up and starting to fog. Greg had already searched the interior. At this point, our assumption was that the driver must have gotten out, and we just hadn't seen him or her. We didn't understand why they hadn't answered us as we ran to help or why the car had been left running. We continued to search for a person around the wreck. We tried to go into the woods, but the underbrush and steep embankment was impossible to climb. At this point, we decided whoever was driving may have just walked away. We got back into Greg's car and drove slowly 3 miles back, then turned around and drove slowly the next 6, fully expecting to find someone needing a ride, or to a phone. We were relieved that the driver must not be hurt, but couldn't imagine why they didn't see us and how they had left on foot without us seeing them. No other vehicles had come down the road. At this point, the remaining road we drove was covered with snow and we saw no tracks. We went to my house where my parents were waiting as it was really late. Greg told my father what had happened and then described the car and how beautifully restored it was in case he knew to whom it belonged. The whole incident just left us baffled. By the next day, we decided that maybe there was a house in the woods or side road we missed. We both were just unsettled by it. We didn't know why we were worried about what now appeared to be a non-event. The next day, we went back to the scene of the accident. Both of us felt that we would find a house close by that had gone unnoticed, or a side road, something. We didn't understand why we were still dwelling on it. But little did we know that quite the opposite was what we found. The car was still there, but had been moved into a clearing in the trees. I will never understand what happened the night of the Chevy whose taillights we followed hit that curve and rolled. There it was, still on its roof. The damaged grille and front fender damage. The accident on Friday night. Here we stood on Sunday afternoon in the car. The paint was faded. The body was completely rusted through, over the majority of it. Tires were completely rotted and rims were rusted. The interior was dry, rotted, and covered with mold. The windows were gone and the windshield was broken with a basketball-sized hole, full of vines growing in and out of the car. The embankment we had tried to search was now a clearing, and setting further back into the woods was a small, abandoned 2-room shack. We later did a property search, but it only led us to the owners that had bought the acreage, with a shack and car on it. All we were left with was a lifetime of questions surrounding a cold December night. Case file number 1652, written by Wicked, The Dead Pixel in the Sky. Hi, this story is from the summer of 2017. At the time, I was on a summer break from university, working at a local gas station to earn some money for accommodation, as my family was never well off. I was cat-sitting for a friend in her apartment while she was visiting her then boyfriend in the Middle East, where he was on a work assignment. It was the middle of the week, beautiful and sunny weather. One of those rare, beautiful days you just want to spend outside. But the day was passing slowly as I had to spend it in the damp gas station until late afternoon. I was expecting to finish working at 5 or 6 p.m., but to my surprise, the scumbag owner of the place, really a scumbag, he made me work 11 to 15-hour days every day for crap money, came in and said I could finish early. I didn't have to be prompted more. I just grabbed my bag and went out of the place all cheery, so that I'd have time to myself to enjoy the beautiful weather. On my way to the metro station, I was looking around and just admiring the outside. It was truly a beautiful day. When I saw a helicopter in the sky, there was no sound, which was very odd as, since we all know it, helicopters are bloody loud. The helicopter looked suspended in the air, not moving at all, including the rotor at the top. I looked down to check my glasses, as maybe I was seeing it wrong, or maybe I was just tired after a long shift, but to my surprise, when I looked up again, the helicopter disappeared and was replaced by a black pixel in the sky. By pixel, I mean a black square in the middle of a clear blue sky. I immediately called my friend who was in the area and asked her to take a look at the sky, but she told me there was nothing up there. I know it was not a hallucination. I was conscious and aware of my surroundings. When I called my then boyfriend to tell him about the situation, he just laughed it off and said I was being crazy, but I know what I saw. The black pixel was in the middle of the sky, and it was honestly the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Case file number 1653, written by Stranger by the Minute, The Bunny Broken by the Universe. For my birthday on Sunday, my mom wrapped a bunch of my childhood things that she's found in storage over the past few months. I'm a very sentimental person, so this was an amazing gift. The most exciting thing she found was one of my troll dolls. It's an Easter troll that my grandparents gave me when I was little. He has a little white jumpsuit with colored eggs on it and a little bunny ear headband. This little guy is extra special to me because both of my grandparents have passed. When I unwrapped it, the ears were missing. Wait, the ears aren't in there? I had them. I know they're around here. So yesterday, I went up to my parents' house to visit. I brought the troll so I wouldn't forget to grab the bunny ears. When I took the troll out of my purse, my mom said to my dad, "Where are the ears? They were on the back of the chair." They weren't there anymore. While she looked for them, I went into my childhood bedroom to look for something else. Placed right in the middle of my Care Bear desk was the bunny ear headband. I saw it as soon as I walked in my room, plain sight. So I grabbed it and went back to the living room. When I got out there, my mom said, "Here you go," and held up bunny ears. Identical bunny ears. I was like, Mom? And held up the bunny ears I had found. We were both like, what the hell? I only had that one Easter troll, and he only had one headband. These headbands are identical. Exactly the same in every way, except the one she found had a broken band. I threw the broken one in the garbage. The placement of the one I found in my room is really strange. I thought my mom had put it there so it wouldn't get lost. There was nothing else on that desk, and she doesn't meddle in my bedroom. Every time I go up there, things are exactly the way I left them. That headband sure as hell was not there the last time I was there. I would have put it away with my old toys. I have OCD, and everything has its place. It gets weirder. Today I texted my mom and asked her not to take the garbage out. I decided I wanted to keep the broken headband as proof that this happened. It was just too weird to ignore. She responded, "What?" I repeated myself. "I want the bunny ear headband that I threw away, so I'm gonna have to dig through the garbage when I come up next time." She said, "It's on the table." "What? I threw it away. So you didn't take one?" "I took one, the one that wasn't broken. The one on the table isn't broken." I feel crazy. I've experienced a lot of really weird crap in my life. I have a list of them written down. This is easily one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. I keep trying to rationalize it, but I just can't. I only had one Easter troll, one, and the magic broken twin bunny ear headband climbed out of the garbage onto the dining room table and mended itself? No, there has to be an explanation, but there fricking isn't one. Case notes for file 1644. Can a pair of shoes destroy a universe? So I think the clue here that is really important is how you were effectively in and out of sleep for 36 hours. That signifies a very intense amount of illness. Maybe some sort of disease took over you and you died in that original universe, and then when you got here you were still sick, but not enough to kill you, and you were on the last stretch of sleep and then you just went on. But of course in this new universe you have this pair of shoes that is just out of place. And then you have the evidence of a picture of you wearing them. Maybe they were a pair of shoes that your ex gave you, and that's why you can't find other pictures. You went back and deleted all of them, but you just forgot this one. It's a strange explanation, but I suppose it does work. Case notes for file 1645. The mysterious connection between thought and tragedy. So first I just want to say, please do not blame yourself. Everyone has those intrusive thoughts that enter their mind. We don't control what thoughts pop up into our mind. We can control to some extent if they stay, but our thoughts are not entirely our own, or they are, but they're just the subconscious chaos that brews around. It's not who you are. We are our choices, not our thoughts. And so even if your mind really did pick who you wanted to be around, and even if that had an effect on who did die, it's not your fault. Not at all. I mean, I've had intrusive thoughts about conquering the world, so don't give me the ring of power, but outside of that, it's okay. Everyone has those strange thoughts. It's just what you act on that matters. Personally, though, I don't think your mind had any effect on what happened. I think your subconscious mind picked up on the fact that your dad was struggling and in pain and dying, and fed you that information to your conscious mind how it could in the form of a question. That's all. So none of this was your fault. Now time for the quote of the day. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. Confucius. We are the rational manifestation of the planet, of the universe. So fascinating when you think of it from that perspective. If you want to learn something, the best way to learn it is to do. I mean, I can learn things by study, by reading, but you don't fully grasp it intuitively until you go out and practice it. That's where the experience level really shoots up through the roof. At least for me, that's how it works. I learn better by doing, not by pure theoretical study. Anyone else like that? I have a second channel where I react to shows I've never seen before. If that interests you, go and check it out. Link is in the description. Now onto the notes. Case note for file 1646. From Seargent to Glitch Detective. So yeah, this is a shared glitch indeed, and I love these because it's harder to place. For instance, could it be multiverse sight? Well, this is a full transition for hours between universes if that did happen. How does that work though, for so many people? Did you just intersect altogether a space-time portal that transitioned you to a new universe and then somehow intersected another one to come back hours later? That is so unlikely. It doesn't seem right to me. And could it be quantum immortality? Maybe. But then how did you get back to the originating universe? Honestly, I'm kind of stumped on this one. I don't know how you can transition universes outside of quantum immortality in a full transition, not just sight or sound for a couple seconds or a minute. That does happen relatively frequently. But for 5 people to transition back and forth fully, I don't know. That is very, very uncommon. The other possibility is everyone was in on it and it was a prank, but that seems also very unlikely. Maybe that is more rational, but I don't know. How do you transfer universes back and forth like that? One of those times where I'm just stumped. Case note for file 1647. The Park of Geometric Glitches. So here we go back to dead pocket theory, where in the transition period in quantum immortality, your soul doesn't instantly travel to the new universe, at least maybe not if they're far away. Sometimes there are stories like this where people are in kind of a limbo state in a world that has no life and no one else around seemingly. Besides these weird apparitions of people, things that look like people, like in a forest blending in, or in this case, a strange woman driving a car with shades and a brown coat on, it's almost like that's a manifestation of your own perception of this entity that is looking out for you during the transition process. And how the park seemed to be incoherent with how you were walking through space-time, well, I think it's just curved geometry. It makes more sense like this. Why would you render an entire planet for this limbo dead pocket world for someone in transition? That would be so much wasted space. Why not just a small little slice and then curve geometry around it so they never really notice the boundaries? Even though it doesn't make sense when they reach the new universe, it doesn't really matter. And honestly, I don't think we're supposed to be aware of that dead pocket when we go there. I think for some reason, some minds are just aware of it. Now time for the joke of the day. 2 cows are grazing in a field. One cow says to the other, "You ever worry about mad cow disease?" The other cow says, "Why would I care? I'm a helicopter." Oh no, he's already infected. Run! Case on for file 1648. What would you do if a stranger's prophecies came true? Related to your friend passing away similarly? I don't know, I think that's just a coincidence. Maybe? Of course his abilities were not a coincidence. There's no way to fake that stuff in my view. Well, I guess you could. Maybe this strange man in a bar told you this stuff and then hired goons to later on attack you, as he described you would be attacked. But why the hell would someone do that? I mean, that's a level of crazy that requires too much cunning and planning and money and just doesn't make any sense to me. So no, I do believe he predicted that possible future for you accurately, which to me is extremely creepy. I do not like anything to do with future prediction. I mean, I like reading it, but I don't like the idea of it, especially not happening to me. I want to know that I'm in control of my own future. Case notes for file 1649. The mystery of retirement. You're not a nut, seriously. Our reality is not fully understood, as most would have you believe. We understand a lot of it. We understand much more than we did 100 years ago or 1,000, but there are still so many mysteries that are yet to be uncovered. And one of these anomalies are what most would call ghosts or spirits. But they're not ghostly as most would think, as they're depicted in fiction, where they're translucent and have this foggy mist about them. No. Sometimes, maybe, translucent. But most of the time, I think they can manifest entirely in the physical realm, and they look just as real as anyone else. They're just supposed to be dead, and you find that out later on, usually, but they can even interact with the physical world. Now, I think doing that takes a lot of energy, and so it's not always the case. I mean, if you do see a spirit, you might find that they're not interacting with the world as thoroughly as they should be. The other possibility, also, is that you're seeing through the looking glass to a different parallel world. Maybe in that universe, right next door, this man hasn't died yet. And maybe he was seeing you in the other universe, and you were looking slightly discombobulated. I always wonder that, if you're in multiverse sight, peering to a different universe, do the people there fully realize that it's you? Maybe in those cases is when you look like a spirit, as most imagine it. Because you're not fully there. You're kind of just a faded out approximation. Case notes for file 1650. My uncle was erased. Yeah, another instance of what most would call a ghost. But in this case, parallel sight makes the most sense to me because of how much your uncle was interacting with the world, with the door, with everything in the house and so on. My guess is you probably even felt the wind as he passed by and his scent and everything like that. He was really there. Could that be a spirit? Maybe, but I think this is just multiverse sight. You saw a different universe where he hadn't died in this accident. Now time for the joke of the day. A husband and wife head out for dinner. The husband orders steak tartare. The waiter asks, "But sir, what about the mad cow?" She'll just have a salad." That's so wrong. Question suivant 1651. On the backroads of Indiana, our minds were shattered. The clue, of course, is in the model of the car you saw, so the age of the car corresponds to the age that you were transported to. So I don't think it was a restored car, I think it was just factory brand new for that time. You and Greg were ported back in time to witness this crash. Although the mystery then is, what happened to the driver? Was it a case where you simply switched positions? So whoever was in the driver's seat, or maybe the passenger as well, 2 for 2, were transported to your timeline when you intersect the space-time portal that ported you to the past. What fascinates me most is how seamless these events are, and including the return, where you did go back to your own time. And when you did go back to check the car, you found out, yeah, the slow decay of time has ravages on anything, metal or otherwise. Although it is weird that they never went back to claim the car, even just for scrap, that has some value. Why just leave it in the embankment and never come back for it? Maybe they stole it? I don't know. Personally, I like to think of it as a seesaw or maybe a balance where you can place things on either side and depending on the weight of one, it'll rise and lower. I think it's the same thing that applies in our universe for matter and energy. If you go back in time, you're not supposed to be there. The universe knows this instantly, and so transposes someone else in your place to your timeline, at least until you return and then they switch back. The universe loves symmetry and balance. So if you take an action, or if you're in an event that causes an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, including in time and space. And now, you don't normally notice this in these stories because often people are ported back to places where there's a lot of people. So they wouldn't notice someone missing. Or if there's a smaller crowd, they still wouldn't know who the hell everyone is, so they wouldn't know someone is missing. And I don't think any actions taken in the future would have any effect, because we're dealing with the multiverse ocean. To avoid paradoxes, that's how it works. If time travel to the past is possible, basically traveling to a different universe altogether. So anything that happens there has no effect on the future of the universe that you came from. Although it would affect the future of the universe that you're in that past. So you can kind of mess things up for them without knowing. Now time for the quote of the day. I like rice. Rice is great if you're hungry and want 2,000 of one thing. Mitch Hedberg. Yes, rice is the ultimate staple food. You know, people often attribute being poor, or if you're broke, then you're going to eat ramen. Which, yeah, ramen is cheap, but if you want the ultimate staple, cheap budget food, just get rice. And you can change it with different spices and herbs and add beans as well, which are also extremely, literally dirt cheap. Lentils, stuff like that. If you want to eat simple and cheap, get rice. And jasmine rice is the best rice, in my opinion. Especially for stir fries or just eating it as is. And on the other side, just get some oil, olive oil, avocado oil, and potatoes. And literally just dice them up, toss some spices in there, paprika, cayenne pepper, chili flakes, salt, pepper, olive oil, avocado oil, mix it up, toss it on a sheet, and bake it for, 30, 40 minutes until they're a nice golden brown. Toss them once between being done. There you go. Simple, easy, extremely cheap meals, healthy. Didn't intend this to be a recipe video, but there you go. Enjoy, James. Question suivant 1652. The dead pixel in the sky. So the rare dead pixel makes a return, and I hate it. I like the story, it's interesting content, but I hate it. I don't want the universe to be unstable. Is that what it means? What else could it mean? Although technically it's not a return, because this is from 2017, I'm just seeing the story now. But that makes 3 stories where they describe this dead pixel in the sky that just doesn't belong. In this case, a helicopter kind of disappeared into it, or was it the cause of it? Is this some sort of wormhole? But we have space-time portals that are invisible, so how does this fit in? I don't know. I don't think it's a wormhole, personally. I think it's just a pocket of unrendered non-time and space. It's literally nothing. And between the 3 of the stories, there's no clear connection. Nothing that caused it. I mean, there were no helicopters in the other 2. They were inside people's homes. In a garage, I believe, and one in the living room. What causes them? I have no clue. If this was the first story I ever read about this, I would hypothesize that the helicopter somehow ruptured space-time, but no. There's no helicopters in the other stories. Nothing of any notable energy. I don't know, I'm stumped on these and I don't like them. Please remain stable, universe. Stable enough. Case also file 1653. The bunny broken by the universe. So, the universe playing a game of time, or some force or will doing so. If you think about it, what is time? Time is simply change, or at least the effect of time is change. Time is more fundamental part of space and time itself, the fabric of the universe, but the effect of time is change, one way or another. So if you are able to locally rewind time for any given object, it'll mend whatever happened to them. It'll simply reverse aging or deterioration or damage in this case. Now the fact that this is duplicated, well, is it as simple as the developer in the universe can, Control V or Control C copy, Control V paste, and then voila, there's an extra copy. One was just copied from a different point in time of its life history. That makes sense to me, but it still doesn't explain why anyone would do that. What does it matter if there's a broken headband for your bunny troll doll? I got nothing for that one. I can hypothesize how it could be if we're in a simulation, but the reason why someone would do it in the real world, I have no clue. Just strange. Now time for the quote of the day. The trouble with having an open mind, of course, is that people will insist on coming along and trying to put things in it. Terry Pratchett. One of the best things about intelligence is the ability to hold opposing views in your mind and not let that conflict with your current view that is accepted. It's like you have a program that's loaded into your brain and the others are just on the hard drive but not installed. You can examine their code, try to determine if they're useful programs, if they're accurate, truthful, but you don't have to install them until you determine that they are better than the program you're currently using. If you're able to do that, then count yourself blessed, because that takes a lot of intelligence to do consistently, and especially with views that you're extremely emotionally charged with. Some things we associate with our very being, who we are, our personality, who we are on this planet. If you're able to entertain views that oppose it, not install them, but just entertain them, think about them, even steelman them. Steelmanning is probably the best thing you can possibly do. If you're trying to have an honest discussion with someone, try to steelman their view, because if you're not able to steelman it, then you don't understand their view. And if you don't understand it, how can you argue against it with any level of sincerity? I don't think you can. It's difficult to do, no doubt about that. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.